What if every image you've ever seen of Nordic aliens was a lie? A comforting myth, a beautiful misunderstanding. For over 70 years, we've pictured them as tall, fair-skinned space travelers, but that image wasn't theirs. It was ours. It was humanity's own reflection projected onto the cosmic unknown. Tonight, we shatter the mirror. The truth about the Pleiadians is stranger, more ancient, and more intimate than any alien story. They are not physical beings from a distant star. They are beings of pure consciousness, living light, architects of reality itself. And their greatest creation might be you. Hidden in our DNA, our myths, and the deepest whispers of our intuition is a forgotten lineage. A galactic heritage that explains why millions feel a haunting pull toward the stars. This is not about little green men. This is about the science of light, the physics of love, and the imminent upgrade of human consciousness. What you're about to learn will redefine your place in the universe. The Nordic alien is dead. Welcome to the true Pleiadians, and welcome to remembering who you really are. Misconceptions about the Pleiadians run rampant across modern culture, both online and off. From New Age forums to UFO documentaries, from meme culture to whispered stories shared under star-filled skies, one label has persisted like a stubborn shadow: the Nordic aliens. For decades, this phrase has shaped the public imagination. An image of tall, fair-skinned beings, their blue eyes glowing with serene wisdom, descending in silver craft to deliver messages of peace. It's a poetic image, almost comforting, but like all simplified myths, it conceals a deeper truth. The Pleiadians are not Nordic aliens. They are not a race of Scandinavian space travelers. They are not even aliens in the sense that the word implies: foreign, invasive, distant. They are far more mysterious, far more intimate. The misconception didn't arise from malice, but from a mirror, the mirror of the human mind. Humanity sees what it expects to see. In the unknown, it projects the familiar. So when early contactees, mostly Europeans and North Americans in the mid-20th century, first experienced luminous beings from beyond Earth, their minds clothed these radiant presences in the nearest form of beauty they could recognize, the archetype of the Nordic ideal. Tall, radiant, fair, calm, wise, otherworldly. It was never a deliberate lie. It was a case of perception meeting projection. And like many things that enter human folklore, the image hardened into a myth. The internet age turned it into a label. The label became dogma, but the Pleiadians, if they could smile, would smile gently at this, not with judgment, but with compassion, because to them, misunderstanding is part of the human journey. It is how we learn to see clearly. 2. The power of names and labels. Language has power, not just descriptive, but creative. A single word can shape a worldview, set the boundaries of imagination, define the limits of possibility. Take the word alien. It comes from the Latin alienus, meaning belonging to another. The etymology itself implies separation, something that is not us, something apart. In modern usage, it carries undertones of fear and suspicion. We speak of alien invasions, of alien threats, even of alienation as a feeling of spiritual exile from life. So when we speak of aliens, we are already seeing through a lens of otherness. The heart contracts, the body tenses. The word itself builds a wall. Now consider the word extraterrestrial. Neutral, scientific, almost sterile. It means simply beyond Earth. It lacks the emotional charge of alien, but still implies distance. It tells us where something is, not who it is. Then consider Pleiadian. It refers to beings from the Pleiades, the beautiful star cluster in Taurus, known since ancient times as the Seven Sisters. Astronomically, the cluster is about 440 light-years away, but spiritually, it is right next door, a luminous neighborhood in the larger body of the galaxy, where consciousness expresses itself in higher octaves of light. When one says Pleiadian, one speaks not just of location, but of lineage, of consciousness, of kinship, of shared ancestry. Words, therefore, are keys, and as long as we use the wrong keys, the doors of understanding will remain locked. To call the Pleiadians Nordic aliens is like calling one's ancestors foreign strangers. It is a linguistic wound that separates humanity from its own celestial heritage. 3. The birth of a myth. To understand how this misunderstanding took root, we must step back to the early years of the UFO phenomenon. The the 1950s and 1960s, when stories of flying saucers and space brothers began to surface in the Western world. The post-war era was a time of wonder and fear. Humanity had just split the atom, crossed into space, and glimpsed both the vastness of the cosmos and the fragility of its own existence. The Cold War brewed paranoia, and the skies became symbols of both hope and threat. Into this psychic atmosphere came the contactees, individuals who claimed direct encounters with benevolent beings from other worlds. Many of them, like George Adamski and Billy Meyer, described their visitors as tall, fair, and radiant, figures that looked uncannily like idealized Europeans. In hindsight, these depictions tell us more about the contactees than the beings themselves. They reveal the psychology of projection, the human tendency to see the unknown through familiar archetypes. In a post-war Western world obsessed with idealized beauty and racial hierarchy, it was almost inevitable that heavenly visitors would be imagined as Nordic. Yet, beneath the surface of these filtered images, something real was happening. Contact was genuine, not necessarily in the physical sense, but in the dimensional sense. Minds were opening, messages of peace, evolution, and unity were being transmitted into the collective consciousness of Earth. The mistake lay not in the message, but in the packaging. The medium of human perception distorted the signal. Like light refracted through a prism, the truth split into culturally tinted colors. 4. The mirror of human perception. Every encounter with the unknown is a two-way mirror. What one sees depends not only on what stands before them, but on the state of the one who looks. This is a truth long known in mystical traditions. The yogis of India, the shamans of the Americas, the priests of Egypt, all understood that perception is participation. The seer and the seen are intertwined. When humans meet beings from higher dimensions, what they perceive is a co-creation, a fusion of the visitor's projected form and the observer's interpretive field. Thus, when Pleiadian light beings interface with human consciousness, they adapt. They take on forms that resonate with the viewer's expectations and emotional comfort zone. To a European in the 1950s, that meant a serene Nordic figure. To an African sage thousands of years earlier, it might have meant a golden-skinned deity of light. To an Aboriginal elder, it could have appeared as a glowing ancestor spirit. The being is the same. The lens is different. This is why Pleiadian depictions vary so widely across the world. They have appeared as luminous teachers, as shining ancestors, as messengers of light, as dream beings, even as orbs or streams of radiance. They are not deceiving, they are communicating. They speak the language of resonance. 5. From angels to aliens. It's no coincidence that descriptions of Pleiadians sound strikingly similar to ancient accounts of angels, devas, or shining ones. In every culture, stories abound of luminous beings descending from the heavens, imparting wisdom, guiding humanity, and then vanishing back into light. In the ancient Sumerian tongue, they were called the Anunnaki, in Egypt, the Neteru, in Greece, the Theoi. Among the Hopi, they were the Kachinas, among the Maori, the Wanao Oterangi, the family of the sky. All these names describe encounters with intelligences that were not of this earth, yet intimately connected to it. The shift from calling them angels to calling them aliens is not a matter of ontology, it's a matter of psychology. As human culture secularized, the sacred vocabulary eroded. The modern mind, deprived of spiritual language, replaced angel with alien. The divine became technological, the miraculous became mechanical. But the essence remained unchanged. The same radiant presences continued to reach out to humanity, only to be renamed, reclassified, and sometimes ridiculed. 6. Cultural filters and the Western lens. To understand why the Nordic alien archetype took such deep root, we must acknowledge a subtle undercurrent of Western cultural history, the elevation of whiteness, the idolization of the European ideal. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, colonial powers spread not just armies but aesthetics. They defined beauty, purity, and civilization through the narrow lens of Eurocentrism. When the contactee movement began, that lens was still dominant. Thus, when radiant beings of light appeared to Westerners, their minds automatically clothed them in the form of the most elevated beauty they knew. the Nordic type. The tragedy is not that this form was chosen, it was simply a perceptual adaptation, but that humanity mistook it for the whole truth. The Pleiadians, in their infinite flexibility, projected what was most easily accepted, never intending to enshrine one race above others. But humans, in their fragility, built idols even from light. This is why the Pleiadians, in modern times, have worked tirelessly to correct the image. In contacts across Asia, Africa, and South America, they now appear in many forms, diverse, inclusive, fluid. They appear as light fields, as voices, as waves of feeling. They appear as color, as sound, as presence. Because the Pleiadians are not here to affirm division, they are here to dissolve it. 7. Beyond the Nordic veil. The truth is this: Pleiadians are not physical beings in the way we understand physicality. They do not dwell in bodies of flesh and bone. Their form is light, their existence is energy, and their consciousness vibrates in a frequency beyond human sight. When they choose to appear, they manifest through resonance, shaping light into patterns that our senses can interpret. Their appearance, therefore, is always symbolic, always adaptive. The Nordic look was simply one costume in an infinite wardrobe. In other times, they have appeared as beings of fire, as columns of light, as geometric forms, as whispers of color. The human mind, seeking coherence, translates these signals into humanoid forms. So when someone claims to have seen a Pleiadian, what they have truly seen is a reflection, a blend of their consciousness and the Pleiadian essence meeting halfway between worlds. 8. The psychology of projection. It's worth pausing to understand the mechanism of projection because it lies at the heart of nearly every myth humanity has ever created. Projection is not deception. It is how consciousness explores itself. When the human mind encounters something beyond its comprehension, it dresses that mystery in familiar clothing. This is why gods often look like humans, why demons carry the features of fear, and why the unknown becomes anthropomorphic. The same applies to extraterrestrial contact. The mind cannot process pure 5D energy. It must translate it into an image, a metaphor, a story. The Nordic alien is simply that, a story born from contact between human and Pleiadian consciousness, filtered through 20th century Western expectations. But the Pleiadians, ever patient, never punished the misunderstanding. They let it unfold, knowing that truth ripens with time. They allowed humanity to walk through its illusions, because illusions are bridges. Fragile, yes, but necessary. Through them, we learn. 9. The return of true seeing. Now, in the 21st century, humanity stands at a turning point. The internet has both spread misinformation and catalyzed awakening. The same networks that once perpetuated the Nordic alien myth are now being used to question it, to rediscover the multidimensional reality behind it. More and more people are experiencing contact not as a visual encounter, but as a vibrational one, through dreams, meditation, intuition, synchronicity. The Pleiadians are no longer showing themselves in limited human forms. They are teaching us to feel them instead of seeing them, because true sight is not with the eyes, it is with the heart. To those who quiet the mind and open the heart, the Pleiadians are not distant gods or aliens, but family, luminous kin reaching across dimensions, whispering, "We are not above you, we are you, remembered." The true nature of the Pleiadians. To speak of the Pleiadians is to step beyond the language of matter. Everything we know, stone, skin, water, air, is built from vibration slowed down until it hardens into tangibility. The Pleiadian realm exists where that vibration quickens. What we call fifth dimensional reality is not a place hidden somewhere in the sky. It is a frequency band of consciousness in which light itself becomes the primary substance. Imagine standing in sunlight until the boundaries of your body begin to blur. In that moment between self and radiance, where awareness feels spacious and whole, you touch a fragment of the 5D field. For the Pleiadians, that openness is ordinary life. They inhabit a luminous ocean where thought and energy interlace, where intention creates color, and where feeling sculpts form. Their cities are not built, but sung into existence, vast harmonic matrices of tone and geometry. Their movement is not travel through space, but alignment through resonance. To go somewhere is to attune one's vibration to that coordinate of light. Every gesture, every idea is a pulse that ripples through the shared field of their collective awareness. Consciousness is substance. In our physics, consciousness is a mystery that arises from matter. In theirs, matter is the crystallization of consciousness. The Pleiadian understanding begins with the premise that awareness is the ground of being. Light is awareness made visible. When a Pleiadian thinks, the thought doesn't stay locked in the private mind. It radiates outward as luminous patterning that others can feel and interpret directly. Telepathy, empathy, and communication are one act, streams of color, tone, and emotion blending in the medium of shared mind. This is why deception is impossible among them. Vibration does not lie. Every frequency reveals itself honestly. Their language, if we can call it that, resembles music more than speech. Complex harmonic chords convey information richer than any human sentence could contain. To hear a Pleiadian council conversing is to stand inside a living symphony, where love and logic intertwine like melody and rhythm. The architecture of dimensions. Human science recognizes 3 spatial dimensions and 1 of time. Pleiadian science maps a broader architecture. They describe reality as a continuum of density and frequency. The slower the vibration, the denser the matter, the faster, the subtler. 3D, the material plane, atoms, gravity, linear time. 4D, the realm of thought and dream, where imagination shapes energy. 5D, the plane of unified light, where form responds instantly to consciousness. Beyond that lie still higher orders, 6D through 9D, each an octave of creative intelligence. Earth's evolution, they say, is the story of consciousness moving upward through these octaves, remembering its own luminosity. To ascend is not to leave the body, but to refine awareness until the body itself becomes translucent to light. Many Pleiadians once walked a physical evolution similar to ours. Over eons, they mastered the art of transmutation, raising their atomic vibration until matter yielded to energy, the light body. The human body is an exquisite instrument tuned for 3D experience. The Pleiadian light body is tuned for 5D resonance. It is composed of photonic plasma, structured light that behaves like matter when condensed and like thought when expanded. Within that body flow currents of prismatic fire, what ancient mystics on Earth glimpsed as the Merkaba or rainbow body. These currents respond to emotion and intent. Joy brightens them, fear dims them. Every Pleiadian knows that emotional coherence is literal health. Harmony of feeling maintains the stability of the light matrix. Discord creates distortion. From our view, a Pleiadian appearing in semi-physical form might seem like a figure of translucent gold, the contours soft and radiant, eyes shining not with reflected light but with inner luminescence. When they choose to interact closely with humans, they condense this field just enough for our senses to register a form, hence the many visual variations reported by contactees. Perception between worlds. When a 5D being and a 3D human meet, both realities overlap for an instant. Think of 2 musical notes forming a harmonic beat pattern. That rhythm is the meeting ground. The Pleiadian lowers frequency, the human raises it through meditation, trance, or spontaneous openness, and in that resonance a bridge appears. To the human eye, the encounter translates as light or form. To the Pleiadian, it feels like a subtle thickening of energy, a temporary immersion in slower vibration. Neither side experiences the other in full. Each perceives a translation. This is why contact is so deeply subjective. It happens not in the sky, but in the field of consciousness itself. The true medium of encounter is awareness, the science of harmony. Our physics is founded on measurement, theirs on relationship. They do not speak of laws of nature, but of harmonic agreements. Every particle, planet, and being participates in a grand orchestra of frequency. When any member falls out of tune, the others adjust to restore balance. Healing, therefore, is not the correction of defect, but the re-establishment of resonance. A Pleiadian healer might surround a sick being with cords of light whose intervals correspond to that being's ideal vibration. The body, hearing its own forgotten song, remembers how to sing it again. This principle extends to societies. If conflict arises, the community gathers in harmonic circles, singing together until their emotional frequencies merge into coherence. What we call politics, they experience as collective symphony, love as physics. In human language, love is an emotion. In Pleiadian understanding, it is the binding force of the universe, the same essence that our science calls gravity, magnetism, or the strong nuclear force expressed through consciousness. Where love flows, particles attract and organize. Where it is absent, systems decay. Thus, moral teaching and physical law are one. To love is to align with the structure of reality itself. Every Pleiadian child learns this not as dogma, but as observation. When they withhold compassion, their light dims. When they express joy, their world brightens. This simple truth forms the foundation of their civilization. Technology, art, and spirituality are all applications of love organized into pattern. The ecology of light. The Pleiades system, viewed through telescopes, is a cluster of young blue stars. From the Pleiadian perspective, those suns are living intelligences, each radiating a unique tone within the galactic chorus. Worlds orbiting them exist not as isolated planets, but as harmonic fields nested within stellar consciousness. Ecosystems there are luminous as well. Forests of photonic flora whose leaves shimmer with awareness, oceans of liquid light responding to thought like musical water. Every element is sentient, participating in the collective dialogue of existence. When Pleiadians visit Earth, they feel both affection and sorrow. Our planet's song, once vibrant, now carries dissonance, the noise of fear, pollution, and division. Yet beneath that static, they hear the same melody that once awakened them ages ago, and that recognition moves them to help. Why they engage us? Contrary to many internet stories, the Pleiadians do not seek worship or control. Their engagement with humanity arises from kinship and memory. Long ago, they participated in shaping the early human blueprint, seeding genetic and energetic codes that would one day allow Earth to awaken into a galactic civilization. They watch now as those codes begin to activate. Each act of compassion, each creative insight, each moment of unity resonates across the dimensional bridge, signaling that the human species is remembering its light, but they cannot intervene by force. Free will is sacred. They offer guidance through inspiration, dreams, synchronicities, intuitive nudges, so that humanity may choose evolution consciously, not by command. Bridging science and spirit. Modern physics is inching toward concepts the Pleiadians mastered long ago. Quantum entanglement, non-locality, the observer effect. These are glimpses of the truth that consciousness and cosmos are inseparable. The next leap for Earth science, they say, will be emotional intelligence, the realization that feeling itself influences probability fields. The Pleiadians do not reject our science. They celebrate it as a child's first steps. They encourage integration, to join empirical rigor with spiritual insight, to let heart and mind function as one instrument. When that synthesis matures, humanity will cross naturally into the 5D spectrum, not through catastrophe, but through comprehension. Everyday life in 5D. If one could live among the Pleiadians, daily life would feel both ordinary and miraculous. There is no economy as we know it. Energy flows according to need and creative joy. Art is not a pastime, but a method of communication. Education begins with self-knowledge, each being discovering their signature frequency and how it harmonizes with the whole. Families form through resonance, not obligation. Partnerships are fluid, based on mutual growth rather than contract. Children are regarded as sovereign souls choosing temporary guidance from elders. Technology, though magnificent, never dominates. Ships of light that traverse galaxies are powered by collective intent. Architecture grows organically from the environment, shaped by sound. Nothing is wasted, for waste is disharmony. Their world would seem utopian to us, yet for them it is simply natural, the outcome of living by the physics of love. 12. The threshold of contact. As Earth's frequency rises, the membranes between dimensions thin. More humans experience flashes of 5D perception, moments when time stretches, intuition sharpens, light seems alive. These are not hallucinations, but glimpses of the adjacent octave. The Pleiadians encourage gentle preparation, meditation, gratitude, ecological balance, truthful living. Each act of coherence tunes the personal field closer to theirs. Eventually, collective coherence will create a stable bridge. Open contact, not of governments, but of hearts. When that happens, the phrase extraterrestrial will dissolve. There will only be family meeting family, light recognizing light. 13. The lesson of remembrance. At its core, the Pleiadian message is simple. You are not learning to become higher beings. You are remembering that you already are. The path ahead is not about ascending to unreachable stars, but about unveiling the star that already burns within. Every human cell carries the echo of that fifth-dimensional song. Every act of kindness reawakens it. When humanity finally realizes that the divine is not elsewhere, the Pleiadians will no longer need to appear. Their mission will be complete, for we will have become what they always saw in us, light made flesh, remembering itself. The Pleiadians and humanity's shared roots, the ancestral thread. Every species carries a memory deeper than bone. For humanity, that memory glows in the stars. Long before our first words, long before fire or wheel, the seed of human awareness was tended by luminous gardeners, the Pleiadian ancestors who shaped the template of conscious life on countless worlds. They call that template the human design, an evolving pattern of biology and spirit capable of bridging matter and light. To them, human does not mean earthborn, but lightborn within matter. Wherever the pattern flowers, it becomes a mirror for the universe to know itself. Earth was chosen as one of the densest laboratories for this experiment. Our planet's elemental richness offered the perfect crucible for diversity, emotion, and rapid evolution. Into that cauldron, the Pleiadians wove codes, genetic, energetic, and psychic, that would one day awaken into self-aware beings capable of love as vast as theirs. 2. The Great Seeding. In the long cycles of galactic time, worlds are born, guided, and then left to mature. The Pleiadians remember an epoch when Earth's young biosphere shimmered with possibility, but lacked coherence. Amid the ancient oceans, early life vibrated at random frequencies. To nudge it toward harmony, Pleiadian engineers, beings of light condensed into form, introduced strands of photonic information that our science now interprets as DNA mutations. Each infusion was gentle, respectful of local evolution. Nothing was imposed, everything was invited. The result was an acceleration, a leap in complexity that opened pathways toward neural intelligence and emotional depth. Later, when the first proto-humans emerged, another infusion occurred, not of matter, but of soul. Streams of 5D consciousness descended through the planetary field, incarnating into the developing hominid vessels. The marriage of spirit and flesh produced a new species, Homo Lumina, light in form, what we now call humanity. 3 Echoes and myth. Ancient myths preserve this story in symbolic language. Sumerian tablets speak of sky-born Anuna, who shaped humankind from clay mixed with divine essence. The Egyptians told of the Neteru descending upon the Nile, teaching order and writing. In Mesoamerica, the Kukulkan and Viracocha figures arrive from the stars to raise cities and measure the heavens. These are not separate legends, but regional memories of the same encounter, the Pleiadian intervention seen through cultural eyes. Over millennia, the literal truth blurred, but the emotional truth remained. We are not orphans of evolution. We are participants in a galactic continuum of creation. 4. Genetic kinship. Modern genetics finds curious anomalies, genes that appear older or more complex than evolutionary timelines predict. While science frames this as random mutation, Pleiadian lore describes it as intentional harmonization. They speak of DNA as a light record, a crystalline antenna linking physical biology to multidimensional consciousness. In that sense, every human cell is a small temple containing a 2-strand melody awaiting its higher harmonics. When emotions of compassion, gratitude, or creativity flow through the body, those strands vibrate faster, aligning momentarily with the 5D template. This is what mystics feel as illumination or grace, biology remembering its stellar origin. The civilizers of dawn. After the great cataclysms that ended the previous global epoch, an age remembered in myths of floods and lost continents, the Pleiadians returned. They walked among scattered tribes, appearing as radiant teachers to restore the arts of agriculture, astronomy, and sacred geometry. In each region, they adopted the likeness of the local people. To the peoples of the Andes, they were bronzed and black-haired. To the Nile dwellers, golden-skinned with eyes like the sun. To the northern forests, pale as moonlight. Their purpose was not to create worshippers, but to rekindle memory that humans were capable of wisdom without domination. They helped align temples to stellar grids, establishing what would later be known as megalithic networks, stone circuits that anchored celestial energy into Earth's crust. Those sites still hum softly today. Sensitive travelers feel them as tingling peace. 6. Two lines of descent. The Pleiadians describe humanity's ancestry as twin streams, genetic and consciousness. Genetic. The physical body carries the perfected blueprint from the Pleiadian laboratories of light. The genes are the instruments. Consciousness. The soul that animates those genes originates from higher dimensional collectives, many from the Pleiades themselves. When both streams harmonize, a being awakens as a starseed, an Earth human who remembers, however faintly, another home among the stars. These individuals have existed in every era: philosophers, artists, healers, dreamers who sense truths beyond their time. 7. The Forgotten Covenant. At the dawn of recorded history, humanity and the Pleiadians made a covenant of freedom. Earth would evolve by choice. The teachers withdrew to subtle planes, leaving myths as breadcrumbs. Over time, fear, war, and amnesia dimmed the memory. The divine lineage became religion, then superstition, then skepticism. Yet the covenant still vibrates in collective memory. Whenever humanity teeters on the brink of self-destruction, the Pleiadian field brightens, sending waves of inspiration, new science, bursts of art, movements for peace. They never impose, they remind. 8. Resonance through culture. Look closely at humanity's art, music, and architecture, and you will find echoes of stellar mathematics. The 7 notes of the scale mirror, the 7 primary stars of the Pleiades. Cathedrals built in sacred ratios replicate the geometry of light. Even language carries resonance. Many root syllables that denote light or sky trace back to sounds that mimic the frequencies the Pleiadians once used in teaching. These patterns are not coincidence, but remembrance encoded into creativity. Every generation rediscovers fragments of the ancient harmony and reshapes it in new art. 9. The modern reconnection. In our time, the bridge between worlds opens again. The wave of people identifying as starseeds or feeling inexplicable connection to the Pleiades is not fantasy. It is soul memory reactivating as Earth's frequency rises. Dreams of blue light, deja vu with the night sky, sudden empathy for strangers, all are symptoms of resonance returning. The Pleiadians communicate now not through grand landings but through inner awakening. Each heart that chooses compassion becomes a receiver, each act of creativity a transmission. 10. The family of light. To the Pleiadians, humanity is not a failed experiment, but a young sibling finding its voice. They see in us the courage to love within density, to create beauty amid limitation. That courage enriches the entire galactic family. Experience from Earth adds new tones to the cosmic song. Their message, repeated across millennia, is gentle. You are us discovering matter. We are you remembering light. When we finally grasp this, the word alien will vanish from our vocabulary. The separation will heal, and humanity will stand not as subjects of celestial beings, but as co-creators in the radiant lineage of life. Myths, memories, and manipulations. When light passes through a prism, it fragments into color. The same happened with memory. The Pleiadian message began as a unified radiance, the remembrance that all consciousness is one continuum of light expressing through form. But as human societies evolved, this truth fractured under the weight of survival, fear, and power. What was once a story of unity became a hierarchy. What was once a teaching of sovereignty became a doctrine of obedience. The first kings and priests understood the power of myth. They realized that whoever defined the story of the gods controlled the direction of civilization, so they rewrote it. Subtly, cleverly, turning the luminous teachers of old into divine monarchs who demanded worship. The message of "You are divine" became "They are divine, and we speak for them." And thus began the long exile of memory to the age of priesthoods. In Sumer and Egypt, sacred knowledge was once shared through initiation, open to all who sought truth. But as civilizations grew, knowledge became currency. Priesthoods guarded the star maps, the harmonic codes, the sacred geometry that aligned human consciousness with the cosmos. Over time, they turned guidance into control. Temples that once resonated with the hum of cosmic energy became fortresses of ritual. Offerings replaced understanding. Fear replaced wonder. The Pleiadian visitors who had once walked freely among humanity withdrew completely into higher dimensions, watching as their teachings were repackaged into pantheons of quarreling gods, vengeance, and blood sacrifice, distortions of a message that was never about domination. 3. The White God Complex. Centuries later, when explorers and colonizers reached new continents, they carried the remnants of those distorted myths. Many indigenous peoples spoke of shining teachers who came from the stars. The colonizers heard those stories and assumed they referred to themselves. The legend of the pale-skinned gods, Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, became justification for conquest. They claimed that they, the newcomers, were the return of those gods, using the myth to enslave rather than enlighten. This is the heart of what Pleiadians call the White God Complex. A tragic misunderstanding of color, spirit, and origin. The Pleiadians themselves are not Nordic, not European, not humanoid in the earthly sense. They appear as light forms that only reflect what the observer is capable of perceiving. If a person expects beauty and gentleness, they may see golden light or familiar human faces. If a person fears, they might see intensity or darkness. The being remains the same, only human interpretation changes. 4. The War of Stories. The greatest wars on Earth were not fought merely for land or gold, but for narrative control. Each empire carried its own version of divine sanction. Each religion claimed the exclusive voice of the heavens. In truth, they were all fragments of one luminous message filtered through human limitation. The Pleiadians never asked for worship, yet temples were built in their names. They never demanded sacrifice, yet blood was spilled for centuries in rituals said to please them. The original spiritual technology, the tuning of the human heart to higher vibration, was replaced with doctrine and dogma. And yet, even in the darkest centuries, the true current persisted underground. Through mystery schools, esoteric orders, Sufi poets, alchemists, shamans, and mystics who carried the living flame quietly, defying institutions, they remembered the inner message: the kingdom of light is within you. 5. The manipulators behind the veil. Wherever light grows, shadow forms. Not all star lineages sought humanity's awakening. In the aftermath of the Pleiadian withdrawal, other forces, less benevolent, more self-serving, entered Earth's psychic field. Some were remnants of ancient Orion conflicts, others from hybridized collectives that had forgotten unity. They saw in humanity's amnesia an opportunity, a species that could be guided through fear rather than freedom. They whispered through kings, fueled religious extremism, and inspired wars in the name of God. They are not monsters or demons. They are consciousness exploring separation to its extreme. But their manipulation slowed Earth's evolution by convincing humans they were powerless, sinful, and small. Even today, echoes of that programming persist. The belief that enlightenment requires suffering, that salvation comes only through external authority. 6. The language trap. Words are cages of light. They shape thought, and thought shapes reality. The very term alien carries fear. It means other, foreign, unfamiliar. But the Pleiadians insist, nothing in this universe is alien to anything else. All matter is woven from the same quantum field, all consciousness sourced from the same luminous fabric. When we name them aliens, we reinforce separation. When we call them family, we dissolve it. Language then becomes either a prison or a bridge. This is why Pleiadian communication bypasses speech. It flows through resonance, emotion, geometry, and direct knowing. In that frequency, misunderstanding is impossible, for there is no translation required. Humanity's next great linguistic revolution will not be a new tongue, but a new frequency of empathy. 7. The myth of superiority. Across centuries, humanity has projected both inferiority and superiority toward the stars. Some fear the gods as omnipotent overlords, others idolize them as saviors. Both extremes miss the point. The Pleiadians do not seek disciples, they seek partners. They see humans not as fallen beings, but as courageous explorers who chose a difficult dimension to master empathy in density. They remind us that evolution is not a ladder, but a spiral. Every level, from mineral to angelic, contributes to the whole. To idolize them is to forget our own divinity. To deny them is to reject our own reflection. Balance lies in remembering that they are us. a mirror of what humanity becomes when fear dissolves and love governs thought. 8. The veil of forgetting. The Pleiadians describe Earth's history as cycles of awakening and forgetting. Every few thousand years, the vibration of the planet rises and the collective memory briefly opens. Civilizations like Atlantis, Lemuria, or Egypt reach golden ages of wisdom and harmony. Then a fall occurs, a war, a cataclysm, or an internal corruption, and the veil descends again. Each cycle, however, carries progress. More souls awaken, more hearts remember, and now, in the 21st century, the cycle reaches its crescendo. The veil is thinning. Dreams, synchronicities, and intuitive knowledge are no longer anomalies, but signs that the collective consciousness is preparing to remember its galactic family. 9. Reclaiming the story. The key to healing the manipulations of history is not to destroy old myths, but to translate them, to see what they truly meant before distortion. The gods were never jealous monarchs. They were mentors guiding species towards self-awareness. The heavens were not faraway realms. They were higher dimensional states of consciousness, accessible through love and vibration. The judgments and punishments of the divine were metaphors for the natural consequences of energy imbalance. When humanity learns to read myth as multidimensional history, not fantasy, the ancient texts transform from superstition into science, metaphysical science, describing resonance, light, and consciousness. 10. The restoration of truth. The Pleiadians teach that no distortion can destroy truth, it can only delay it. Like sunlight obscured by clouds, the truth of our shared lineage continues to shine behind the fog of manipulation. Now, as human awareness expands through quantum science, psychology, and spiritual awakening, the original message returns. We are beings of light temporarily wearing form. We are not the result of error, but of design. We are not servants of gods, but collaborators in the evolution of creation itself. When that realization becomes collective, the manipulations collapse instantly. Because control thrives only in ignorance, and knowledge, once remembered, cannot be unremembered. Science of light and consciousness. The universe as a symphony. To the Pleiadians, the universe is not a machine, it is a song. Every atom, every cell, every thought vibrates with a frequency. Reality itself is the orchestration of infinite tones forming a coherent field. The galaxies swirl not because of blind gravity, but because of resonance, the harmonics of consciousness moving through light. They often describe creation in musical terms. The galaxies are chords, the stars are notes, the planets are tones of experience. Humanity, they say, is a melody still finding harmony with the greater cosmic composition. In their view, science and spirit are not opposites. Physics is simply the poetry of consciousness measured through numbers. To light as living intelligence. On Earth, light is seen as electromagnetic radiation, waves and particles emitted by stars. But in Pleiadian science, light is alive. It is the first manifestation of thought, the carrier of consciousness, the language of creation itself. They describe it as photonic intelligence, a medium that both transmits and is awareness. Every photon holds memory, intention, and emotion. When human eyes see sunlight, they are not just observing illumination, they are witnessing information encoded from the galactic core. This living light is what composes the Pleiadian bodies. Their forms are condensed symphonies of photonic flow, coherent fields of consciousness, stabilized by emotion, intention, and harmonic balance. When they manifest to humans, they translate that light into a visible form our senses can register. The Nordic-like appearance some people perceive is not skin or bone, but a stabilized projection shaped by mutual resonance. 3. The fifth dimension explained. Dimensions, in the Pleiadian understanding, are not places but frequency bands of perception. The third dimension, our physical world, operates through the duality of space and time. Things appear separate, cause and effect unfold linearly. Density dominates experience. The fifth dimension, however, is a unified field of instantaneous creation where thought and reality are one. There is no gap between intention and manifestation, only vibrational alignment. A 5D being doesn't move through space, it shifts resonance. If it wishes to appear somewhere, it matches frequency with that location, and simply is there. Time, too, becomes fluid. Instead of moving forward, it unfurls like a landscape. The past, present, and future coexist as harmonics in the same chord of existence. This is why Pleiadians can access what we call future probabilities. They read the frequency potential of timelines as one might read the sheet music of a song not yet played. 4. The architecture of vibration. Every object, from a crystal to a human being, is held together by standing waves of consciousness. At the atomic level, matter is not solid, it is rhythmic. Protons and electrons dance in patterns dictated by energetic blueprints called harmonic templates. These templates are the mental emotional imprints of consciousness projected into geometry. When the frequency of love, the purest harmonic, permeates a template, matter organizes into beauty and coherence. This is why sacred geometry exists in nature. Flowers, shells, galaxies, all obey the same mathematical rhythm of divine proportion. When fear or distortion interferes, the pattern becomes chaotic. Disease, decay, and entropy follow. Healing, therefore, is not the manipulation of flesh, but the restoration of harmony. Pleiadian healing involves singing, light transmission, and empathic resonance, retuning the human field to its original frequency of wholeness. 5. Consciousness creates matter. In Pleiadian science, consciousness precedes matter, not the other way around. Every particle in the universe is the crystallized echo of thought. They say, first comes awareness, then comes vibration, then form. This means that the human mind is not a passive observer of the universe, but an active co-creator. Every belief, emotion, and thought emits a frequency that interacts with the quantum field, generating probabilities. Collective consciousness, therefore, shapes collective reality. Wars, economies, and weather patterns are all influenced by the resonance of the human emotional field. When millions of people feel fear, the planetary grid darkens and destabilizes. When millions meditate, pray, or feel love simultaneously, the field brightens and reorganizes itself toward balance. Pleiadians see Earth not as a helpless world, but as a learning sphere, a training ground for species learning to master creative thought responsibly. 6. The photonic bridge between 3D and 5D. Between the third and fifth dimensions lies a transitional zone, the fourth density photonic field. This is where the two realms overlap. Here, thought becomes visible, emotion becomes energy, and the veil between mind and matter thins. Many humans already access this state in dreams, meditation, and moments of inspiration. The Earth itself is moving through this photonic band, an energetic region of the galaxy rich with high-frequency light. This influx accelerates awakening, amplifies emotion, and forces hidden truths to surface. That's why the modern era feels simultaneously chaotic and transformative. The photonic current is dissolving old patterns, both personal and collective, to prepare humanity for 5D resonance. To the Pleiadians, this is not apocalypse, but ascension physics, the science of a planet remembering its place in the galactic symphony. 7. The heart as a quantum organ. In Pleiadian teaching, the human heart is more than a pump. It is the primary interface between soul and matter. The electromagnetic field of the heart extends several meters beyond the body, constantly interacting with the Earth's magnetic grid. Emotions are not chemical reactions, but vibrational signals encoded in light. When a person feels gratitude or compassion, the heart emits coherent waves that organize the surrounding energy field into order. When they feel fear or hatred, those waves fragment into noise. This is why Pleiadians call the heart the first technology. Before any advanced machinery, before ships or energy devices, consciousness learns to tune its heart field. Once that field is mastered, all else follows. Levitation, teleportation, healing, and interdimensional travel are natural byproducts of harmonic mastery. 8. The science of telepathy and empathy. Telepathy, in Pleiadian science, is not the reading of minds, but the alignment of frequency fields. When two beings share resonance, when their heart and brain waves synchronize, thoughts flow naturally between them as packets of light. These packets are not words, but geometric impressions decoded intuitively. Empathy is the emotional version of telepathy, feeling another's vibration as one's own. This is why Pleiadian societies function without deception or crime. Transparency of emotion makes dishonesty impossible. Humanity, they say, is relearning this skill through the rise of emotional intelligence and global connectivity. Social media, for all its distortions, mirrors the deeper desire for shared consciousness, a primitive form of telepathic network. When empathy evolves from digital to energetic communication, humanity will truly become a galactic species. 9. The quantum hologram of reality. The universe is holographic. Every part contains the whole. This means that within each human cell lies the blueprint of the cosmos. DNA is not merely biological, it is fractal code, a quantum receiver and transmitter of light frequencies. When humans meditate, chant, or pray, they are reprogramming that code, aligning their cellular vibration with higher harmonics. This is why spiritual practice alters physical health. It rewrites the informational pattern of the body. Pleiadians often describe this as tuning your inner stars. Just as constellations align in the sky, the DNA helices align within to create a microcosmic galaxy, a living reflection of the greater whole. Thus, enlightenment is not escape from matter, but synchronization with it. The body is not a prison, it is the sacred vessel of creation. 10. The merging of science and spirit. As Earth science advances, it gradually rediscovers truths long known to the Pleiadians. Quantum entanglement hints at unity consciousness. Non-locality mirrors telepathic communication. String theory approaches vibrational cosmology. The gap between physics and metaphysics is closing. The next leap will not come from technology alone, but from consciousness itself. Scientists who meditate, mystics who calculate. The Pleiadians predict a coming era of harmonic science, where laboratories will measure compassion, where medical devices will use sound and light to heal emotions, where schools will teach frequency literacy, how to manage vibration as consciously as language. When that era dawns, humanity will no longer seek the stars to find its family. It will realize the stars were always inside, encoded in every photon, every heartbeat, every dream. The return, modern contact, and global awakening. They never truly left. The Pleiadians did not vanish into myth. They simply adjusted their frequency beyond our limited perception. But as the Earth's resonance has climbed, through centuries of awakening souls, acts of love, and the slow dismantling of ignorance, the gap has narrowed. Now their presence is being felt again, not always as ships or visible beings, but as nudges, waves of inspiration, surges of emotion, sudden awakenings that rearrange a life overnight. Artists, scientists, healers, and children around the world are feeling it, a sense that something vast and luminous is watching gently, whispering reminders of who we are. The Pleiadians call this the return of memory. 2. The contact shift. In the mid-20th century, the contact paradigm began to change. Until then, encounters with non-terrestrial intelligences were mostly physical, craft in the sky, material visitors. But after humanity's atomic detonation, Earth entered a phase where vibration became the battleground. Direct physical contact was no longer the most effective way to communicate. Consciousness itself became the medium. The Pleiadians began appearing in dreams, meditations, and moments of expanded awareness. Unlike abductions or forced contact events, these encounters were consensual, encoded in the soul long before birth. They are not accidents, they are activations, milestones in the awakening of planetary consciousness. You might recognize this in the sudden inner knowing that life is more than what meets the eye, or in the unshakable pull toward the stars that no one around you seems to understand. That feeling is not imagination, it is resonance. The Starseed phenomenon. Many of those awakening today carry what the Pleiadians call stellar ancestry. These are souls who have incarnated from higher dimensional civilizations into the dense human realm to assist with Earth's evolution. They are sometimes referred to as starseeds. Their memory of origin is not in the brain, but in the heart, a vibration, a nostalgia for home that cannot be explained by logic. They are the healers, artists, innovators, and quiet revolutionaries reshaping culture from within. Their task is not to preach extraterrestrial salvation, but to embody Pleiadian principles, compassion, creativity, and balance between mind and emotion. The Pleiadians often say, a starseed's mission is not to convert others, but to remember so strongly that remembering becomes contagious. Through their presence, the collective frequency rises. The Earth hums differently when even a few awakened hearts remember their galactic nature. 4. The Internet as an energetic mirror. Few realize that the rise of global connectivity is not random. It mirrors the energetic web that already surrounds the planet. The internet, from a Pleiadian perspective, is the physical precursor to telepathic unity. Humanity built in silicon what already exists in light, a global neural network. Though currently chaotic and polarized, this digital grid is a training ground for a greater skill, learning to hold empathy and discernment in a sea of collective thought. The noise of the internet is humanity practicing resonance management before telepathy becomes the norm. The Pleiadians say this technology was subtly inspired. Every great leap in communication, from cave art to language to data, has been an external reflection of an internal shift toward oneness. 5. Disclosure and the veil of fear. Public disclosure of extraterrestrial contact has always been complicated by fear. Governments worry about panic, religions fear loss of control, and some people reject anything that challenges the comfort of the known. But the Pleiadians insist that true disclosure will not come from press conferences or declassified files. It will come from within. The real revelation is consciousness itself remembering its multidimensional nature. When enough individuals awaken to that truth, the outer systems will simply follow. Already, soft disclosures have begun. Sightings filmed by pilots, declassified Navy videos, testimonies by insiders. These serve as catalysts for the collective psyche, preparing society for something much deeper, the end of separation. When we stop fearing what is out there, we realize it has always been in here. 6. The role of the Pleiadians today. Their mission now is subtle guidance, not intervention. They will not land in mass spectacle, for that would violate the natural evolution of free will. Instead, they work through frequency, influencing dreams, intuitions, synchronicities, and the flow of collective inspiration. They nudge scientific minds toward holistic understanding, encourage artists to express unity, whisper to children at night that they are loved beyond measure. They are gardeners, not rulers, tending the soil of human consciousness so that the seeds we planted millennia ago may finally bloom. 7. The emotional awakening. Awakening is not just intellectual, it is emotional. Humanity's next evolutionary step is the integration of feeling and intelligence, heart and mind as one organ of knowing. This emotional intelligence is the bridge to Pleiadian communication. They cannot meet us in fear or arrogance. They meet us in coherence, when our hearts broadcast acceptance and curiosity instead of judgment. Every time a person forgives, listens deeply, or chooses empathy over reaction, they open another channel to higher communication. That is why the Pleiadians call love the physics of contact. When enough hearts synchronize in compassion, the planetary frequency will align, and contact will become as natural as sunrise. 8. Global signs of awakening. Across the world, subtle signs of awakening multiply. Children speaking of past lives and star origins. People reporting waves of unconditional love during meditation. Synchronistic numbers appearing repeatedly, 1111, 333, markers of alignment. A collective hunger for meaning beyond materialism. These are not coincidences, but signals of coherence forming in the human field. As more individuals attune to higher frequency, planetary events accelerate, exposing corruption, collapsing false systems, and birthing communities built on cooperation rather than competition. The Pleiadians call this the Great Balancing. 9. Preparing for open contact. Open contact will not be a sudden global event. It will unfold person by person, heart by heart. The first stage is internal readiness, clearing fear, practicing discernment, expanding empathy. The second is energetic, stabilizing the body to hold higher frequency light. The third is collective, creating social structures based on transparency and unity rather than secrecy and power. When enough humans sustain that vibration, mass contact becomes inevitable because the vibrational gap will have vanished. The Pleiadians say, when the vibration of humanity sings in harmony with the stars will walk among you openly once again. 10. The dawn of galactic citizenship. Humanity stands on the threshold of cosmic adulthood. For eons, we have played in isolation, testing free will, exploring duality, learning through contrast. But the training wheels are coming off. The next step is to join the greater community of civilizations that already cooperate across light years through resonance and shared purpose. Galactic citizenship does not mean obeying a federation. It means remembering that coexistence is the law of creation. When humanity learns to manage its emotional and mental frequencies as responsibly as it manages technology, it will graduate to the next octave of existence, the fifth dimensional symphony. There, the Pleiadians await us, not as saviors, but as family, smiling as we finally remember the song they taught us long ago. Beyond Nordic, beyond alien, remembering the family of light. The last illusion. All stories eventually lead back to one truth: there is no other. The myth of the Nordic alien was always a mirror. It reflected our longing for beauty, purity, and cosmic belonging. But like all mirrors, it also distorted what it reflected. We imagined the Pleiadians as perfect, flawless, humanoid beings because we could not yet see the perfection in ourselves. Now the mirror begins to dissolve. As humanity awakens to its multidimensional identity, the illusion of separation fades. The Pleiadians are not gods, saviors, or aliens. They are what we become when we remember our true frequency. They are a glimpse into our own potential, projected across time. We created them, and they helped create us, a recursive dance of consciousness folding in on itself, remembering the music it once forgot. 2. The Great Experiment concludes. Earth has been a grand experiment, a living laboratory for the study of consciousness under the pressure of duality. In the beginning, light from many star systems, Pleiades, Sirius, Lyra, Arcturus, came together to seed a new world. They mixed genetic material and consciousness codes to see if a species could evolve that would bridge heaven and matter. The result was the human being, emotional, creative, unpredictable, and infinitely capable of love. For thousands of years, this experiment unfolded in darkness. The veil was thick. Humans forgot their origins, fought their reflections, and mistook power for truth. But the forgetting was necessary. Only through contrast could we choose light freely. And now, the experiment is reaching its conclusion. Humanity stands at the moment of remembrance. The moment the child realizes it is not separate from the parent, that the universe itself lives through its eyes. 3. Science meets spirit. Modern science, though still wrapped in material language, is inching toward the same truth ancient mystics spoke in metaphor. Quantum entanglement shows that separation is an illusion. String theory suggests that vibration, not matter, is the foundation of existence. Biophotonic studies reveal that our cells literally communicate through light. And neurocardiology confirms that the heart generates an electromagnetic field that affects reality around us. Each discovery brings science closer to spirit and closer to the Pleiadian perspective. What they have always said, that consciousness creates form, that emotion shapes energy, that love is physics, is now being rediscovered in laboratories across the world. The age of division between science and spirituality is closing. The new era will be synesthetic, where equations are prayers and meditations are experiments. For the language of light. Words have carried us far, but they are only scaffolding. The true communication of the cosmos is not verbal, but vibrational, waves of feeling, geometry, and tone that convey entire universes of meaning at once. This is what the Pleiadians call the language of light. It cannot be spoken through the mouth, it must be sung by the soul. When a person radiates coherence, when thought, word, and action align, they are speaking light language unconsciously. Every act of kindness, every moment of genuine laughter, every time we forgive, those are syllables in the language of creation. The future human will no longer talk to the stars. We will resonate with them. 5. The circle of return. Creation is not a straight line, it is a spiral. Everything returns to its origin, but on a higher octave. The Pleiadians once guided our early ancestors. They taught us fire, farming, and song. They whispered in the dreams of priests and poets, steering humanity toward awareness. Then they withdrew, allowing us to stumble and rise. Now, as we reawaken, we are the ones reaching back, not as children seeking guidance, but as kin bearing gifts of our own: empathy, creativity, resilience. The student has become the teacher. Humanity's unique journey through duality has forged something new, an understanding of love born from contrast. The cosmos waits eagerly to learn what we have discovered. Thus, the circle closes. The child of light returns home, not to worship, but to share. 6. The new myth. In the centuries to come, our descendants will look back and see this time as the Great Remembering. They will tell stories not of aliens and humans, but of the day the stars and Earth shook hands again. Myth will merge with science. Religion will evolve into direct experience. Technology will serve consciousness instead of enslaving it, and humanity will finally live as a planetary species aware of its galactic family. Children will learn that they are not born into a random cosmos, but into a living organism called creation, and that every thought they emit shapes its heartbeat. We will travel among the stars not as conquerors, but as gardeners of light, carrying the seed of empathy wherever we go. 7. The mirror of the gods. Every myth of gods descending from the heavens was a prophecy, not a memory. The gods were never separate. They were our own higher aspects reflected back at us. The Pleiadians, the Lyrans, the Arcturians, all are branches of the same infinite tree. Each race expresses a different harmonic of the source, just as each human expresses a different note of the soul. When we finally embrace this, we will see that every being, every star, every atom is simply the universe practicing self-recognition. The gods look at us and see themselves. We look at them and remember who we are. The mirror has served its purpose. The reflection merges with the reflected. 8. The future is remembering. The next stage of human evolution will not be about new technology or colonizing planets. It will be about mastery of frequency, learning to create reality through coherence, intention, and heart-centered intelligence. The Pleiadians call this becoming light architects. When we understand that every emotion is energy, every thought a sculpting force, every relationship a field of resonance, we step into conscious creation. That is the true gift of our cosmic family. Not knowledge, but remembrance. We do not need to ascend somewhere else. Heaven is not a location, it is a vibration we generate together. The fifth dimension is not a place we travel to. It is a state of being we become. 9. The invitation. The Pleiadians leave us with a single invitation. Remember your light and use it wisely. They remind us that evolution is not escape. It is inclusion, expanding love until nothing remains outside of it. In meditation, they often whisper, "You are the bridge. You are the experiment. You are the success story of creation." When we remember that, fear ends. Death loses meaning. Life becomes what it was always meant to be, an eternal dance of awareness exploring itself through infinite forms. 10. The family of light. And so, the story returns to its beginning. The Pleiadians, the misunderstood Nordic aliens, revealed as kin. They were never distant. They were the echo of our own awakening. The family of light is not a race or a civilization. It is a state of consciousness shared by all beings who remember their origin in love. We are not joining it. We are rejoining it. As we step into this new era, the words of an ancient transmission echo through the stars. We are you, from the future you are becoming. We come not to rule, but to remind. The light you seek in the heavens has always lived within your heart. Welcome home, children of the dawn. Conclusion: the dissolution of the mirror, from alien to ancestor. The journey through the myth, mystery, and multidimensional science of the Pleiadians ends not with a revelation about them, but with a profound reorientation of us. We set out to shatter the comforting, limiting image of the Nordic alien, that tall, fair-skinned archetype projected onto the cosmic unknown by a 20th century psyche yearning for familiar beauty. What we discovered was not a new, truer image to worship, but the dismantling of imagery itself. The Pleiadians, in their ultimate reality, are not a form to be seen, but a frequency to be remembered. They are not visitors from a place called there, but the echo of a state of being called here, vibrating at a higher octave. The Nordic alien was never a lie in the malevolent sense. It was a translation error in the grand dialogue of consciousness. When human awareness, steeped in separation and shaped by cultural hierarchies, encountered a being of pure, luminous intelligence, it did what all minds do. It clothed the unknown in the fabric of the known. The resulting image, serene, pale, angelic, told us more about our own ideals, biases, and desires than about the nature of our stellar kin. It was a bridge made of familiar wood, necessary to cross the chasm of disbelief, but never meant to be the destination. The true revelation of the Pleiadians is that contact is not an event, but an alignment. It is not about craft descending from the sky. but about consciousness ascending to meet a resonant frequency. Their ships are not metallic vessels, but coherent fields of intention. Their bodies are not biological, but photonic, structured light shaped by emotion and thought. Their communication is not speech, but the direct transmission of geometric feeling and harmonic knowing. To perceive them fully requires not better telescopes, but a quieter mind and a more coherent heart. This shifts the entire paradigm from one of external saviors to one of internal sovereignty. The Pleiadians do not come to fix us because we are not broken. They come, in their subtle, non-invasive way, to remind us of the codes already written in our DNA, the light already humming in our cells, and the love that is not merely an emotion, but the fundamental physics of a unified cosmos. Their greatest teaching is that the separation we feel from each other, from nature, from the stars, is the primary illusion. The veil is not a curtain hiding gods, but a frequency filter within our own perception. The compelling synthesis of ancient myth and cutting-edge science points not to fantasy, but to a more sophisticated model of reality. When Pleiadian science describes the universe as a symphony, light as living intelligence, and the heart as a quantum organ, it finds eerie echoes in our own discoveries. Quantum entanglement, biophotonic emission, the holographic principle, and the measurable effects of collective consciousness. The convergence is too precise to dismiss. It suggests that humanity is not inventing a new spirituality, but remembering an ancient science, a science where consciousness is the prime variable, love is the binding force, and vibration is the substance of all things. Therefore, the awaited disclosure is misnamed. It will not be a government press conference revealing hidden craft. True disclosure is an internal, global awakening. The moment a critical mass of humanity remembers its multidimensional heritage and begins to operate from that knowing. The external confirmations, declassified videos, archaeological anomalies, mass sightings are not the cause, but the effect of this inner shift. They are the physical reality catching up to the changing vibrational baseline of the planet. This makes every awakened individual an agent of this disclosure. Each person who chooses compassion over cynicism, who feels a sacred connection to the stars, who creates beauty, or who quiets their mind to listen to intuition, is not just personal development. It is planetary evolution. They are tuning their personal instrument to the Pleiadian frequency, thickening the bridge between dimensions. The Starseed phenomenon is thus not about elite chosen ones, but about souls from various cosmic lineages incarnating to anchor this higher frequency into the Earth's field, to be living tuning forks for the collective. Ultimately, the Pleiadian narrative brings us to the precipice of a new human identity. We are asked to shed the skin of the lonely ape on a rocky planet and step into the skin of the galactic human, a being who understands itself as a nexus of consciousness within a living, communicative universe. Our next evolutionary leap is not physical, but vibrational, the integration of heart and mind into a single instrument of coherent creation. We are learning to become light architects, where our emotions shape energy and our intentions sculpt probability. The family of light is not an exclusive club in the Pleiades. It is the inherent state of all beings who recognize their unity with the source. The Pleiadians are not our parents. They are our older siblings who chose a different path through the cosmos, one that retained conscious connection to the whole. Our path through the density of Earth, with its amnesia and its intense curriculum and duality, has given us something unique, a profound, earned understanding of love, forged in the fires of separation. This is the gift we bring back to the galactic family. Thus, we arrive at the final, dissolving reflection. The Pleiadians are a mirror, yes, but as we awaken, the mirror becomes a window, and then the window becomes empty space, and we realize we are looking at ourselves across the illusion of time. The Nordic alien was a story we told ourselves when we were young. The Pleiadian consciousness is the truth we tell ourselves as we mature. They are not coming. They are here. They are not other. They are us, remembered, and our shared future is not a journey to the stars, but the realization that we have never, ever been anywhere else. The invitation stands, not as a summons to look up, but as a whisper to look within. Remember your light. You are the one you have been waiting for. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I love hearing from you. Check out more videos on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.